We're here with Richard Schiff. And Richard, I wanted to start off by asking you, what do you think drives your character in the new show, Manhattan?
That's a good question, because he's very close to the vest. He doesn't give up a whole lot of information about himself or what he's doing or why. But I think, I think it becomes a little bit more clear in the second season, believe it or not. And we get into a little bit. He reveals a little bit of where he's from and why he's doing what he's doing. And it's a beautiful line that Sam Shaw wrote, which is, when you come from a place without borders, borders come to mean a great deal. And I think he's driven to protect his new home, which is United States.
Most of the scenes your character's in, you're pretty much just in one room with one other actor. How do you find that dynamic of the show, which is in some ways quite different to a lot of the other rest of the world of Manhattan?
I love it. I love working with just in a confined space with one other person in a pressurized container, if you will. First of all, it's faster to shoot because it's only two people, so I enjoy that. But secondly, it seems like a little bit like a play, like just two characters stuck in a place with nothing else to do except confront each other and deal with the issue at hand. And I love that. I think it's very dramatic and creates an intense amount of pressure, especially on the other character. For the most part.
Yeah, and there is like so much like sort of pressure in those scenes. Like, there's the sort of like slow-mos where you're just slowly twisting the knife and building it up. And then there's the big sort of shouting scenes where you just come down on them. What tone do you think that it brings to the show to have those moments in there?
Well, you have a world that Sam Shaw and Tommy Schlamme have created so beautifully with this amazing cast of quite phenomenal actors in this show, that's created this already very pressurized world. Obviously, there's a race to make the gadget or the atomic bomb ahead of Heisenberg and the Nazis and ahead of the Soviets, and to bring an end to this great war, this world war. On top of that, now you have this character Occam, because of the possibility of spies and the possibility of secrets being revealed to the enemy. And so Occam creates an extra pressure, kind of makes the place radioactive, if you will, because they're already under intense pressure. They're already feeling imprisoned, and it's almost like a prison, isn't it? For them, because there's nowhere to go, and they're kind of forced to do this labor in a way. And here is this guy who creates a very imminent life and death scenario, because the first person that he questions ends up dead, doesn't he? So they don't know who he is. He creates mystery. He creates intrigue. Occam does, and he creates a great amount of fear, I think.
Do you have a favorite moment from that first season of the show?
I love being on the show. I love it. So I don't think I have a favorite moment in the first season. The favorite moment comes in the second season, in that scene that Sam and I talked about, and he wrote so beautifully, that kind of gets into the heart of who this Occam, this mysterious man is. That has become my favorite scene, but that's next year. But I love being on the show. I love working with Tommy Schlamme, who we have a long history together, and I think he's brilliant, and I think he's fun to work with, and I love working with great young writers. It all starts with the pen, and this guy's got a very, very talented pen in his hand. So it's a great cast for people who come from a place where working together makes sense. A lot of theater people, I don't mean to that to sound snobby or anything, but Olivia Williams and John Benjamin um, and the rest, Katya and Rachel, they understand. I mean, there's a great love on that set, even though I'm a hateable character. There's a great ensemble and a great sense of sharing the work, and so I love every moment I'm there.
It's an interesting show because you shoot on New Mexico in sort of this property, this estate. You're not in a sound stage in Warner Brothers or anything like that. What is that experience like of going into that sort of environment to act?
I think it's very helpful to the actors. I think, and it gets your imagination working because it looks like Los Alamos might have very well looked. It's a little camp. It's a little town built from nowhere, and there's all these army jeeps and army vehicles and military people walking around. So when you go to work, it feels like you're going into Los Alamos. And all the set design, the production design is so accurate and detailed. And it's very enriching. You get to you feel like you're playing in the real world, so to speak. Back in 1944, and then you get to meet the consultants who have worked in Los Alamos for this guy who hangs out there named Glenn, who is quite fascinating, a builder of bombs and is a historian of the place. So. And then the dust kicks up, and you're in New Mexico, and you're on the land, pretty close to the land where it actually happened. So I think that deepens the experience, if you will.
You're only in 6 episodes of the first season, so you're in the guest category for the Emmys this year. How did it feel to come in and out of the show? You were speaking about the camaraderie you feel with the cast there. Yeah, like how does that feel as a guest, sort of coming? You're not in every episode of the show. You're in the sort of second episode, or the first or second episode, and then the last one.
First, I think I'm in the second. Is when I start in year one.
Yeah. So you're in the first and last. So you're in it throughout the whole year, but it's just spread out.
I love coming in and out. I love it. There's not, I don't feel the sense of commitment that I'm going to have to be doing one thing for the next 5 years or whatever. There's a freedom to that. I get to do other things. So I'm doing 4 shows altogether right now, and getting to play with different characters and stuff. And it's always the way I kind of imagined it. I always imagined being able to jump from one character to the other and so on. And I love it. So I love popping in. I get great warmth when I do from everybody there. And then, see ya. And come back a month later or 2 weeks later or whatever. And I get to play, and then I get to go off and play somewhere else. So I'm really enjoying it.
Do you have an expanded role in season 2? Like sometimes with these characters, if they do well in season 1, there's more of them in season 2, or is it sort of staying at a similar pace?
Well, I'm going to leave that for the audience to be surprised about. I'm not going to talk about season 2 until they get there. But the character gets more interesting for me to play, and things happen which are surprising. But he's who he is. That's not going to change.
Now, you are working again with Thomas Shalami. You mentioned that already, but I was wondering, is that how you came to work on Manhattan through Tommy, or was it sort of just a coincidence?
I knew of the show. I had worked with Tommy on another show. We talked about it. He said something about, we'd love to have you on, but we can't afford you. And I said, don't be ridiculous. Let me read it. And I read it, and there's this one character that both, and Sam, I had been in contact with Sam as well, because I read the pilot, which I loved, and I wrote Sam an email because I just wanted to tell him how much I loved his work, and was very excited for them. And then they came up with this idea for this character, and very different from what they would have originally thought, but because I guess my presence was in Tommy's mind, they kind of said, what if Richard did this part? And I think they both kind of got excited about that. And then I was excited about it. And it's not I guess he represents the OSS in a way. He represents the pre-CIA kind of guy. But he's very different from what you'd expect. He's not Yale educated, and he's not from Connecticut. You know what I mean? He's from the other world, and the old world. And I think we just all got excited about the idea. So I don't remember the day or the exact moment, but I'm always in contact with Tommy, and we're sharing ideas with our various projects. And he mentioned this one, and so I read it just because I like to read stuff, and it evolved from there.
A few of the other old West Wing directors, Chris Miss and Paris Barclay and stuff, also directed some episodes. But
both of them. I'm sorry I missed Chris. He wrote me an email going, "Oh, why aren't you in this episode?" And Andrew Bernstein, who was our first AD on the West Wing, who started his directing career with us over there, is now a very prominent TV director. And I missed him, so I'm getting all these emails going, "Why aren't you here when I'm here?" So I'm sorry to miss them. But what was your question?
It was going to be, but you weren't in any of those episodes. Was that disappointing?
No, I missed all those guys. No, sadly, but I've worked with some good people, some very, very good people, some good directors. And Tommy has directed, I think, 3 or 4 of the ones that I've done. So we've gotten to get into our little thing, which has been fun to reconnect on a working level with Tommy.
Mm. Yeah, is there anyone on the set of Manhattan that's a big joke or anything like that?
I don't think I'm there long enough to find out, but it might be me for all I know. We have a great time. I've hung out with Ash Zuckerman, who I think is fantastic on the show, and Katya. We've played tennis and Ash just kicked my butt in ping pong the other day. So we have some fun, but I don't know who by the way, Daniel Stern was also wonderful to reconnect with on the show. We had one little moment together, I think, in season 1, but it was nice to see him. So I don't know who the practical joker is amongst them, but I know that they like to have fun. And when you're on location like that, and you're in a small town like Santa Fe, I did a movie once in Loop City, Nebraska, population I think 4, and so okay, maybe 90. But when you're on location with people, you tend to get to know them better and kind of become a group more. And so I think that's what they've done. I think it's part of the reason why it's kind of enriched their ensemble. And I don't know, it's just fun to hang out with them.
We're an awards website at Gold Derby. We love talking the Emmys, the Screen Actors Guild, and you obviously had an incredible run with awards with the West Wing. I think we can see your Emmy and your one of your Screen Actors Guilds behind you.
Yeah, but wait, you haven't seen my favorite one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, no, this is the one. This is the one I'm most proud of. Can you see it?
A baseball dream. What was that one for?
New York City World Champion softball down from Leroy Street. This is the one that I hold closest to my heart. It's also the tallest of all.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I didn't realize. I'm sorry. I didn't. Right.
Yeah. What?
I feel like I'm on a morning TV show.
Yeah. No, it's good. So what?
By the way, you see them? 1961 New York Yankees.
Oh, there we go.
Mantle, Roger Maris, Elston Howard. Anyway, I got that at an All-Star game once.
I remember in 2001 at the Emmys when they cut to you wearing your Yankees hat watching the game.
Well, yeah, I had tickets to the World Series in Phoenix. They were playing the Arizona Diamondbacks, and I had tickets to Game 7. And the Game 7, because everything was delayed because of 9/11 that year, Game 7 was happening on the same nights as the Emmys. So I told the producers of the West Wing, I'm going to the game. I'm not going to go, even though I was nominated. I had won the year before, so I was pretty sure I wasn't going to win again. But I wanted to go to Game 7 if there was going to be one. And they said, oh, we get it. Okay, you can, no problem. And then they gave me a 6 a.m. call on Monday and we had driven to Phoenix because we didn't want to fly, and I wasn't going to make it back for my call time. So I ended up having to come back, and we went to the Emmys, and I wore my Yankee hat with the stars and stripes on it, and every commercial break, I was sitting with all the Soprano people, and we were all Yankee fans, and the stage manager had a Yankee hat. So every time they went to commercial, we screamed at him to put on the game. So the game would come on during the commercials of the Emmys, and that's how I was able to see that game. And I ran back. We won Best Show, and I ran backstage to watch the end, which was very tragic for New York Yankee fans. But still, they're still my favorite team that year. They were quite a bunch of heroes to me. Anyway.
Yeah, I heard that was a tough year, like a tough year at the Emmys backstage. Hard to get people back out to the show because everyone was just staying backstage watching the
game
after they won or presented the awards. The seat fillers were very busy that night. But the year before you said you won, what was that like to win the Emmy for that first season of the show?
The first season of The West Wing, I was pretty much sequestered on the set and just focused on the work, and I didn't really know the impact it was having. They posted the ratings every week by the craft services, and I made a conscious effort. I didn't want to look. I didn't want to worry about how many people were watching. I never read the press about us at all. So I was quite shocked when the summer came, and then I went out into the world, and all these people were reacting to the work that we were doing, and then to get nominated and then to actually win. I wasn't quite ready for it. I have to say it was too surreal for me, and it was hard to enjoy, I have to say. But I'm much more experienced nowadays, and I get it all. I was very new to that world of fame and prizes and all that stuff. So I was a bit of a novice with it all. So it was nerve-wracking, to answer you honestly. That's all I got to say about it.
Yeah, I was talking with Bradley the other day about how you guys all, like, 3 of you won 1 year after the next, and how great Aaron Sorkin was at writing those.
I was very happy.
Sorry?
I was very happy that we all were acknowledged, kind of one at a time, and John Spencer came last, and I just remember being so moved and happy that he had won, and that Brad, and that we were all acknowledged in our way, because I don't like the competition. I don't like, that feeling of, oh, he hasn't won one and blah, blah, blah. And, I don't like that. I like the feeling of working, being a group that loves each other and works together. And if prizes get in the way of that, then I don't like them. But if they don't get in the way in that, then, they're fine in their own right.
Yeah, and like we say, sort of saying how good Aaron was at writing those Christmas episodes for you guys, because all 3 of you won for a Christmas episode of the show. Do you think, like, is that Christmas episode where you help out the homeless man your favorite episode from The West Wing, or do you have another one?
Sorry, you're breaking up. I heard the Christmas episode.
Yeah, well, you all won for Christmas episodes,
yeah.
And I was wondering if that Christmas episode was the one that's your favorite episode, or got a special place in your heart.
No, that Christmas episode from the first year was quite an epic story in its own right. I mean, which I'm not going to get into, but it was the product of collaboration between me and Tommy and Aaron. To get that story right, and I'm very proud of that collaboration, and I love that they trusted me, and I have such respect for them, and that's what created a great show. And by the way, that whole show was amazing, and it wasn't about Toby, it was about the guy on the bench, right, and his brother, and I loved that about it. It wasn't about anything I was going through or Toby was going through. It was about how he reacted to something else, out in the world. And I kind of loved that about that show. But the whole episode was quite phenomenal. I mean, all the storylines, the way they came together. I think I was only in 4 or 5 scenes of the whole episode, So that to me, that first year was such a matter of solving problems and figuring it out, and that's what I loved about it, and that's what I loved about that episode.
And I just think, like, also with like Toby, he brought something so different to that cast. He was the angry guy. He was the guy who said like exactly what was on his heart and didn't try to filter it, or like. And I think that scene in the first season, a few episodes earlier, where you have that scene where you're sitting down with Martin and you're sort of talking about the better angel, the president's better angels, really like set the tone well for that character and what he'd bring to the show. What do you think Toby brought to that crew or that cast?
I was just talking with Tommy about that, because I was working over on Manhattan with Tommy and another actor, and they started asking questions about the West Wing and so on. And Tommy was very sweet. He goes, "Well, my favorite, two favorite." Well, I won't say that, but I forgot what I was going to say. What was the question?
It was what did Toby bring to the show? And I cited the better angels. Yeah.
I remember now. And Tommy was talking about my character very lovingly in our work together and all that, which was really sweet. And I told him something I never told him before, because he was talking about the ensemble and how you have to create this kind of symphony. And I said to him, I always thought of Toby as the bassoon, that he's the instrument that no one hears until everyone else shuts up. And then you realize he's been playing all along, and it's a deeper tone, it's a quieter tone, and it's a powerful tone, it's a dramatic tone, really, although it can be funny. And that's how I looked at him, and he wasn't necessarily written that way from the beginning, and again, Aaron and Tommy and I kind of created this evolution of this character that made him very complex and very much wearing it on the sleeve, but not a big talker, unless he had to, which I loved. It's hard to say. It's been a while since I've had to talk about him, but I just think in the whole picture of the ensemble, he was different, which was great. I mean, there were lighter characters and people playing the flute and people playing the alto sax and people playing the guitar and whatever, and Toby was able to it's so important in an ensemble that you create different people that come together to form this family or this group. I always think of this group, the group pictures, whenever on the lesser projects, when they're directing a crowd, they'll always say, everyone's really happy. Well, if you see a photograph of a crowd, you never see everyone really happy. Someone's looking at their phone, someone is scratching their eyeball, someone is looking at the girl next to him. You know what I mean? And the overall effect is happiness, but never is everyone the same way. And in an ensemble, the more different the characters are, the more it feels like a group that makes sense and that's honest and that's a true representation of what a group would be working in the White House. You know what I mean? Does that make any sense? I'm just babbling along.
Yeah, no, it does. Like, I always felt like that Toby seemed the most like angry and he complained the most in his own way. But on the other hand, it was because he wanted this president to be. So it's almost like he believed in this president so much that it just frustrated him when he felt that slipping away.
All I had to do was imagine myself in the White House. My heart goes out right now because I was just watching the ceremony this morning of Beau Biden and the vice president's son who just passed, and I got to know the vice president a little bit, and you get to know these people who've worked in the White House, through our show, and back in the day, the Clinton White House, and a little bit the Bush White House, and so on, and the ones that you very early on when I met these people, I put myself in their position, especially in the position of power and the position of being close to the president, where you can actually affect the course of history, right? And whether people live or die, or whether people eat, or whether people stay in their homes or not. And Toby became someone who was struggling with with holding the world up. You know, I think he took a lot on his own shoulders, and became dark at times because of that. And look at the real world. I mean, look at how difficult it is to give health care to Americans. Something that the rest of the civilized world does without blinking, right? And look how hard that is, and still battling over it. And imagine, if I imagine myself in that scenario, I would get very frustrated. So I put that part of me into Toby.
Final question on the West Wing. What did it mean to be part of that? The whole, like, from season 1 to season 7, and just that's got a very special place in TV history and Emmy history, winning 4 Best Drama Series in a row, doing so well in the acting categories.
It's hard to say what it means. I know it was seminal, you know, the phase of my life. Now that I've passed it, and it's a few years ago, I can see how much it's affected me, and certainly the perception of me in the world. Of course, you never know really what you've got in the moment that you've got it until it's gone. And I often think back on how great those actors were, and how great the writing was, and especially in those first 4 years when Aaron and Tommy were there, and how hard it is to recreate that. And it's one of the reasons why, of course, it's Tommy who's doing it, but it's one of the reasons why Manhattan is so special to me. And I just joined The Affair in New York. Sarah Treem was a writer I've been following since I directed an episode of In Treatment, and she was a producer on that, and I've been following her forever. And I've just started working on that show, and you know, that's another show where you have Dominic West and the great Maura Tierney and Ruth Wilson and all these great people. I love being around talented people, figuring out scenes written by a very talented writer. That's what I like. I like that. I don't like the other. I don't like it when it's not that way. I don't like it. So I look back on the West Wing now and realize that was a very, very, very special kind of perfect storm of the right people coming together to create that particular.
And like, you know, it's sort of so funny still even looking back at it, but that was a huge, like that show rated so well, like on NBC, for a show about politics. It didn't have sex or violence or anything like that in it. But Manhattan's in a different spot where it's on a smaller network. The awards attention for that show could mean even more than it meant for the West Wing. What would that mean for Manhattan to get acknowledged with Emmy Awards or other awards?
Yeah, no, you know, in this day and age where there's so much content spread out like buckshot all over the map, or whatever metaphor is better than that, I think it's important I would love for them to get some acknowledgement so that more people will come and watch it. And that's it, you know. It's different when you know, we were playing for the Yankees, as Brad Whitford used to say, you know. And so when you're playing for the Yankees, it's easier to win an MVP award, you know. But when you're playing for, like, you know, the old Washington Senators, or, you know, the team that, this is baseball. You don't know baseball. Why am I talking to you about baseball?
I know baseball.
Okay, but you get the point. You know, when you're not the big boy in town, and you're off on WGN, there's a little network out of Chicago, and they're trying to create good content, and I would love to reward that. I would love for these incredible actors and this young great writer to be acknowledged. Yeah.
That's great. Well, I was just seeing when you were talking about those sort of one-on-one scenes, how well maybe like something like that 17 People episode may have prepared you for that, when it was you and Bartlett just in the room. That was very much written like a play, those scenes.
Don't forget that John Spencer was in the room. So he just
he was. Yeah,
was in the room doing quite incredible work, as I recall, reacting to the two of us. I got to say, that stretch of the MS, those 5 episodes, I just recently watched the first 2 years of The West Wing, maybe 2 years ago, and I had never seen that show. And Aaron forced me to watch in Excelsis Deo. He said, he goes, I know you don't watch, but I insist that you come with me right now and watch this episode. So I watched that one, but I didn't watch in the old days. So I just recently, last 2 years, watched the first 2 years, and that sequence of those 5 shows about the president's MS, and now each one of us, one by one, of course, Toby was the first, how we reacted to the discovery of the betrayal, not knowing, not being a part of that information and all that. Those 5 or 6 shows were quite remarkable. And what I loved about that show is that I pitched to Aaron once. I said, I'd love to do, if you ever have an episode where Toby's got to figure something out that he can't figure out, I'd love to do an homage to The Great Escape, where Steve McQueen is in his cell throwing the ball. He had a mitt and a baseball. And so we came up with me throwing an old Spalding, which was our old stick ball balls back in New York City, and stoop ball is very Brooklyn, very much what Toby would have to play with. And the episode started with me just throwing and catching the ball. And so Aaron he took this idea, which he loved, and created this phenomenal episode. And that's Aaron Sorkin for you.
Yeah. What was it like rewatching, getting to see how that was edited together, that scene?
The opening sequence was quite remarkable, wasn't it? I mean, it was just these various shots of me at different times in the night, thinking, trying to write, not being able to write, bouncing the ball again, going into Leo's office and questioning him about why this doesn't make sense. With Hoynes, right? It was Hoynes was acting like he was becoming a candidate, and it didn't make sense and all that stuff. I remember being quite impressed with how that was edited together, and I forgot who directed that. Was that Alex Graves?
I can't remember. I know Schlammy did the 2 cathedrals at the end of the season, but I can't remember who did that.
Schlammy.
Schlammy.
Like an old Brooklyn Jewish gangster. Nice.
Yeah.
Keep that going.
Yeah. I've got a Spalding here, Richard.
You do?
Yeah.
Throw it over.
Wrote it.
Let me see that. Let me see. Oh, you just lost it. Let me see.
I just lost it. Do you want me to go grab it?
Well, yeah. Does it say Spalding, or is it just a red ball?
I'll check. Here we go. It's just
Yeah, it doesn't say it. Turn it around. All right. It does say it. You got it. You got the real one. Excellent. Good work.
A legit Spalding. Yeah. It's crazy that you thought of that, because that sound of the badum 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 during that was like such a stayed with you so much. Like, it was such a big part of the episode and setting.
Really a bit of music, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks so much for chatting, Richard. All the best of luck with Manhattan, with The Affair too, when that season you're in comes out.
If we're promoting, I should mention the other 2 shows. I'm doing Rogue up in Toronto for DirecTV, which is kind of a bigger part, and I'm also doing Ballers for HBO, and I'm having a blast down there in Miami with The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, and Rob Corddry and all those guys. So I'm having a good time, and it was great to talk to you as well.
Yeah, no worries. And all the best.
Thanks. Back at you.